So I welcome all the speakers and our audience and Professor Narayan sir in today's webinar. And now I request Professor Narayan sir to start with today's webinar. The topic for today's webinar is financial inclusion in tribal India.
Thank you, Shwamsiddha. I welcome on behalf of Society for Empowerment, uh, Mr. Bhatt, who is the CEO of the financial sector, and Professor Mitashri Srivastava. She is a young anthropologist and professor in Delhi University. And then we have one professor from Central University. And so I welcome all our participants, and I also welcome to those who are viewing the program on YouTube and Facebook. So they are they may send their question if they have any question on our presentation, and we will try to answer the questions. So as our uh, we organize webinar. First of all, the speakers present that, and then if there is any questions raised by the viewers, then we give answers to them. The participants, so whosoever has on whose presentation there is some questions, then we do it. And therefore, we today's the program will go like this. First, Professor Sen, she is from Central University, Ranchi. She will begin. Then the Professor Miktashri will deliver her address. Then finally, Mr. Bhatt will give his own address and remarks on the presentation as well as on the um, theme of the today's webinar. So thank you to all the participants and to the viewers of our program on YouTube and Facebook. And our program is viewed and watched by a good number of viewers. So it's a very popular program so far. The uh, development in tribal India or in urban India is concerned. So today's topic is on the financial inclusion in tribal India. When we see when we say tribal India means all those we can broadly classify the tribes of India broadly in two categories. One is the settled tribal, the other is the nomadic tribal or the primitive group of tribals who have very little access to the programs or the financial institutions. And just for information, Professor Mitashri Srivastava, she has her first-hand data and information because before joining Delhi University, she was in a bank, in a standard bank, in a good bank. So she has first-hand information and she will share her informations. And Mr. Bhatt also has a direct contact and direct interaction with the people throughout the country on the participation of the people, especially of the tribals also. Society is working for last so many years, but webinar we are organizing for also for last 2 years. Very uh, we organize at least two webinars in a month on current issues and on the issues of the people uh, across the globe. Our program is more popular in international countries. We have a collaboration with the India International Center and with the Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, and with other ministries also. So this program is viewed by such ministries and such institutions. And then after the program, we also have coming 2 3 days discussion with the ministry or with the institutions whatsoever they wish to have as an input for the policy and planning of the development of the country. So from that point of view, from that perspective, today's webinar is important from policy and programs perspective because this will give an insight because our speakers today have the first-hand information and they have very reliable, valuable data with them. So I hope that the ministry will like to interact more on this issue. Uh, so, and we also share the feedback which we get from the ministries or the institutions. So that will be shared by each uh, participants on whose we get some uh, inputs from the other institutions or from the government. So thank you very much for your participation. The first speaker is Professor Sen. I request her to make the presentation of her own because financial inclusion in tribal India is, as I said earlier, that it is based on two sectors. One is the settled tribals, the other is the nomadic tribals. Settled tribals, there they have some access to the financial institutions, but those who are the nomadic tribe or the primitive tribe or the vulnerable group of tribe, they have very few access. Almost, I think that our data suggests that they have negligible in role in financial inclusion. Mostly, the nomadic tribes are excluded and from this financial inclusion, and the vulnerable tribals they are not yet aware of such institutions. So there, the role of Mr. Bhatt comes because he is dealing with the non-governmental sector. So there, his role becomes very important. That those are the gray area where his intervention will be of great importance for the nomadic tribe or the vulnerable tribes and the primitive tribes because the urban India, there most of the such programs, financial inclusion programs are there, and people are receiving it, they are getting it, they are using it. But in tribal India, there is difference. There are some data which suggests that the backward caste or even the scheduled caste are better in terms of financial inclusion in comparison to tribes of India, especially the nomadic tribes or the vulnerable tribes. So, with this introduction, I would like to request Professor Sain to make her presentation, and with her data, we will have some input. So, Professor Sain, please go ahead with your
Sir,
presentation.
sir, thank you, sir. Sir Johar. A very good evening to all, to Professor Narayan and all speakers of this evening and distinguished audience online friends. This is really a privileged moment for me. Society for Empowerment trusted upon me such responsibility of keynote address. The first word in the title of the webinar is usually an area of the experts deal financial matters and who measures all profits and loss upon this world. And here the policy of financial inclusion of RBI goes a long way, have to go a long way. First and foremost, it includes an anthropologist like me to share my view, and I came to know from sir that there are others also who will share their views. So, among us, so specifically it's a kind of beginning because this whole issue of inclusion policy didn't come in one day in one go. Very quickly I have sorted out certain things from the beginning of our independent journey, and you are seeing all those things in the first slide. I'm not going to read it. And then I'm going to the last one. So the last one is the last part of the inclusion policy, because before it also, since 2008, the process is on. And as Professor Naran said, it's really very challenging, as Sar placed it, that how to include foragers, because those hunter and gatherers, so called, I tell always so called, and now they are forager, and they are now uh, they are urban foragers also. So how to accommodate or include them, it's really a challenging thing. I'll try my best to talk on this issue. And when we are seeing the last part of inclusion so far, which probably will be going up to 2024, and we are seeing that these policies basically included number of account holders in the rural banks mostly, and those are going on like this Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, and next maybe Atal Pension Yojana, and all these things are known to us, that what kind of facilities they are going to provide. Then come just a minute. So these are the things are coming, these different types of policies. And in that, at least two policies are there in relation to the pension yojana also, and basically which is including rural mass. And here I am supposed to see what is the matter of the for the tribals. And in that list, I was seeing that there was a proposed program, that is stand up loan scheme for SC and ST. And when I went to know more about it, that what is the status of this particular program, I found that according to the Press Information Bureau, this is in front of you, that it is not yet properly introduced, though it was probably launched in 2015. And today I did a kind of survey online. I just sent to my colleagues and students and friends whether they know about it, or whether they know somebody who got this loan among ST or SC, whatever, between 2015 to 2017 or 18. None of them could say or tell me that they ever know anybody who got this kind of facility. So this is one of the eye opener, that how it is differing, though that government is telling that already the fund is ready. And then what is next, what I would like to discuss that. So one after another, I have created the slides which are talking about this different yojanas which have been introduced in the last 5 years. And on 25th of this month, I went to 4 rural banks to know that what is the position of the different yojanas. And before that, I should share one thing with you, that when I've seen the government websites, I found that Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana is one which is very nicely data, which is very nicely available on the page. But other than that, that that when we are going to search all, that all may not show the same result. And in case of stand up loan also, it happened, I had to go more and more sites to understand exactly what is happening there. And in this way, I just was talking to one of the officers of one private deemed bank, and I wanted to know that that because it was told in the that this one, this stand up loan scheme for SC and ST, it was told that the providers will be those banks which are small scale agencies of working as deemed bank like that. So I asked him, and he said it is not yet started by them, and he said that usually those private banks and prefer to give loan to corporate, and if they don't business or traders, they prefer to give the loan. Hello, I am audible.
Yes, yes, you are
Okay,
audible.
so they prefer to give the loan to the group. So in the rural situation, that people have to make a group so that they can be guarantor of each other, and in that way their Govindapur office in Jharkhand has given some loans to some Oraon persons. Mostly they are in agricultural trading. So, and he said that usually getting back the loan amount is very difficult. So that was his analysis. And then I just presenting here my survey reports in four rural banks. So these were my questions that about SHG, SCC, PMJDY, MSME, and ICT facilities, and how people are availing, and how many meetings are organized for the people. Sir rightly said and reminded me that I am not only supposed to talk about the settled agriculturists, tribal communities and families. I must talk about the others also. I wish that I will be able to talk about the others, but I didn't collect data in those communities. So that is another thing. But I have some field observation on that. I'll talk, and then this Canara Bank. Sorry, the spelling there is the mistake. So the Canara Bank, uh, in this area, rural area, it has shown that that is on the that here on the slide, that 1,500 maybe persons are benefited through 150 SIG. Among them, according to Canara Bank's enumeration, that maybe 70% are tribal. Because here, if we look at the villages, here the villages, some are mono-ethnic, some are multi-ethnic, kind of. So from that background, they say. And then about KCC basically they said that the last inclusion, because it is going on sometimes cancelled also. So the last inclusion last within 3 months is 150, and now maybe there are 300 altogether. And for some cases loans are waived also, because the state government have helped the kishans to waive loan. But the KCC loans for Canada Bank, as they said that 70% is that means they could realize. And the best part of all these banks, which they said the Indian performance are the best performance. When they are taking loan, they are 100% attentive to repay back their loan. And particularly Canada Bank employees said that usually women don't prefer to go for digital banking. Still, they have a kind of fear, tribal women, non-tribal women, all. But they come and they learn, but they usually don't attempt it. But best part of it for the lady women members, tribal women members who are usually shy, they are talking of the alternative of FB also. So some of them. So for skill-based training, that Canara Bank has particular state government organization, and they have a provision of Sakhi, that women member who goes to the village and make the account holders aware of all those facilities. Next was a Grameen Bank, and their zero balance account is 5,000, SIG group 200, and 60% of them is tribal women. And KCC, they have 1,600, and their recovering situation is not good. They said it's very gloomy situation, and they have that uh, PMSPY, that is same. So an MSME, they said that for the tribal background, MSME representative is something that invisible, because they don't come to take this loan for further business. I have discussed this matter in the last part. And and the National Rural Livelihood Mission, which has started 2013, is a success story in their bank. And that was they remembered. And for skill based training, they preferred collaboration of Jharkhand Livelihood Mission. Then I went to Indian Bank, and Indian Bank is their KCC numbers 1,800 at this moment. 700 non-performing. They have said, because those 700 probably got the benefit of the waiver also, that recently the state government has helped them. And
Professor, Professor,
yeah, please, sir.
your data is very good, and since we have a limited time, so I would
Okay, sir.
request you to please tell us the policy
Okay, sir.
interventions.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So, bank managers and other members are optimistic about the financial inclusion programs. In general, they found good response from people, though they can't claim it as 100%. The women account holders are found the most reliable records, most reliable on records. There are a good many members in the SHG who are not regular in the meetings of their group and Gram Sabha. They utilize money and loans mostly to meet up family oriented needs. Still, no group are found in the adjacent villages of the university who came up with SHG based entrepreneur activities jointly. The concept inclusion, either social, political, or economic, invariably assigns more responsibility on the society and governance system. Such precondition indicates that inequality is there. The savings related support system of, of the government in near future will stuck up if supportive social institutions do not change. So this I would like to stress upon, because I'm a student of anthropology. When I'm looking at the traditional society setup and the multi-ethnic relations, drastically it will affect food production system. The tribal men and women are mostly agriculturists. The business related matters in agriculture is usually controlled by non-tribal traders. Their caste, religion, business related interstate networks, which we say kin group networks, kinship networks, usually do not permit others to enter in the agriculture related trades at the local place, and which is best understood in the local marketplaces. That there are market almost every day in different places, which we say weekly markets. And if we visit those places, there are two sections in the marketplaces. One is for the wholesalers, another is for the retailers. So if we visit the wholesaler market sites, that it is very much understood. Now my suggestion, what I thought is, the Chamber of Commerce of Northeast Indian states I have seen have members from the tribal backgrounds, and they are actually they are organizing their own chamber of commerce. And that is the need of the hour. I'm not taking, in the Jharkhand situation it is not possible, but membership inclusion is very much necessary. The producers must have direct linkage to the block and district level chamber of commerce. The chamber of commerce still have colonial hangover in many states in India. The traditional networks of traders, many places those have kinship linkages overpower emerging networks, and usually they don't allow to enter others in the trade. Business and traders networks have to be more inclusive in their executive councils. They are not only to do trading and profit. Therefore, such non-governmental powerful registered organizations reform itself by including tribal members, educationists, intellectuals, Dalits, and women members. They cannot limit themselves by organizing only welfare activities to show their social responsibilities. Now, very within maybe 2 minutes, I would like to talk on the forages, because what I have found through the field works, we send our students for field work. So, and I also had visited some places. Actually, if we look at the 100 years of foragers, since the book of Sachin Roy, 1925, it was published on the Birhar. The Birhar you will find in the adjacent areas of Maklaksi side or in the side of Hajaribagh, that they are completely uprooted from their traditional ecological niche completely. In the side of Maklaxiganj, it is due to that kind of urbanization of Anglo Indians, and in the side of Hajaribagh, it is due to mining. So both the sides mining is there. So in that kind of situation, a good many of the Bihars, when they are rehabilitated in their new places, in their those new houses and they were encouraged to get settled. That recently, it is a kind of observation of me of 2 years back. I visited one Bihar settlement. They are completely under some of the traders, and those traders are all taking their productions in a low cost. So what are the productions? Still these people who are foragers, that they are doing some traditional productions, and they know about those things, maybe traditional medicines or traditional thread making, and those what that natural, which are natural fibers are very strong. So still rural places have need for them, and there is a market, and traders know that market. And all of us who are gathered here, we know, if we go through the literature of last 100 years, we know that what kind of that natural products are constantly supplied by the people. I'm not going to discuss. And a great chunk of those natural products were produced by those tribals who are known as nomadic or different that PVTG and others. Either from the forest they collected and helped those traders to supply, or they have from the surface mining also they have collected many things. For example, iron ore, and these are mostly that invisible things. And sometimes we anthropologists also didn't pay our attention. I'm very sorry to say that. With all honor to our seniors, I'm telling it. Please forgive me. So in that kind of situation, we have to list develop list of these products also, which are gathered by them for the market, and they always remain invisible. With this, I am ending here. Thank you very much, sir, to give me this opportunity to talk. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. You have given good, good input from your data. And one thing I would like to share with you that government is keeping eye on it, and this in Chamber of Commerce there is a provision to include the tribals also, especially the nomadic tribes and the primitive tribal groups people in concerned areas. They are given the membership. But as you know that only one girl from Birhor community has just passed this matric examination, so it become very difficult for them to get it. So we have to, as an anthropologist, you have to be very careful that they should go to schools and colleges and get education and should learn through different training programs about their inclusion that is there. And if you happen to have some contact with them, you can just tell them, or you can send their name and mobile number or any address to me. We will try to interact with them and we will try to bring them to this platform also. So thank you very much for your inputs, and I will let you know if there is any further requirement of your discussion with the government. That I will, as soon as we get from the government, we will let you know. Now we have another uh, very good anthropologist, Mitasri Srivastava. She is a professor in Delhi University. She is also in anthropology, and she is a daughter of a renowned anthropologist, Professor A.R.N. Srivastava. So it's a second generation of anthropologist in her family. So I request her to make her presentation and give some policy input so that uh, government may implement it, your recommendations for the development of the tribals.
Yes. Yes. A very warm good evening to everyone. Before I begin, let me be a little apologetic because my network is not on YouTube as such, but I'll be as crisp so that as long as network is supporting me, uh, a very very warm good evening once again. And I'm very grateful to Narayan sir for giving me this opportunity to be a part of Society for Empowerment. I had been waiting for an opportunity speak something on this pertinent issue of financial inclusion, particularly among the vulnerable communities. Not because I'm an anthropologist, but I would say because I'm a banker turned anthropologist. I have served the Indian banking industry for half years in utmost rural of India, and somehow it is this banking experience of mine that be here today in front of you dignitaries and eminent academicians. So I would not take time, but give a very brief introduction to my work profile as a banker, and then I'll straight away come to the theme of the seminar, which is to the theme of the webinar, which is financial inclusion among the tribal communities. Now, as a banker, at a young age, I had joined the banking industry, serving in one Northern Indian branch in the Indian Overseas Bank, and thereafter in one bank branch in Southern India in the Shimoga district of Karnataka. And within Shimoga district, there is a very small rural area of South. It's basically a rural urban area where I worked in an assistant manager. Now, particularly, it was in this duration that I realized that what is the value of an anthropologist in the system? But it is very surprising that because the banking industry works on a very pan-India basis, if you talk about its recruitment, you don't find many anthropologists within the system. So whatever presentation I'm going to give to, I don't have a PPT because my aim is to set a dialogue with you all. This forum is very different. It's not a general national seminar forum where we just select 50 to 60 people and they just deliberate based on their datas and figures. This is a very different kind of forum. It seems to be because it's an NGO. It's working for the benefit of the people. So here, perhaps we can make some candid confessions. We can accept our limitations. We can aim for better policies. Okay, so how would I begin? I would by stating that inclusion seems to be very well defined on paper. Talk in reality, the goals of inclusion are very good. The masses it caters to, the masses are very heterogeneous. So, in particular, if we are talking of tribal communities, then to know where are we falling short of in knowing their culture, and perhaps it is this place where we anthropologists can pitch in the best. Now, you would not believe that in my 10 years of academic career here at Delhi University, I've been often asked that if you did anthropology, then why did you land up in and to be honest, I literally feel like laughing upon those people because somehow, deep within my heart, I know that anthropologists need to be in the system also. There is an option. You can either enter administration, you can either enter the banking system, or wherever a need and a requirement arises. So I chose for myself the banking industry because I remember at a young age I had a passion to go into rural India to serve the tribal people, and I did that. Like Suchita ma'am was saying, helping the women, helping the SHGs with their programs in small and medium enterprises branch, in lead banks, and in similar forums. So, what I want to submit to the forum is that bank being a political organization, we need to bring in humanistic perspective in bank. We need to make the banks social in character. But how do we do that? I mean, saying is one thing and doing is very different. How do we do that? Perhaps we first need to know what is financial inclusion in a very humanistic term, setting aside the definitions. Honestly, when you go to the ground, when you in the bank, all what matters to at one point is your salary that comes into at the end of the month. But banker has to rise beyond these monetary gains, and of course, one has to access the field. And while one is an employee, there are several limitations and several challenges in accessing this field. You cannot leave your seat work and you cannot go to the banks and you cannot talk to people in the people will come. So in my case, what I did was because I was skilled as an anthropologist, I had finished my PhD, I was skilled as an anthropologist. So I did the participant observation in a very drive with the banking setup as the universe of study, where my tribal customers would come to the bank. And that was a kind of liminal zone where I was understanding the tribal in its own capacity, that as a tribe, as well as in the capacity of a client, in the capacity of a customer. And what I realized is that many a times the banking industry, what it does is it does a generalization of all customers. But we have to be very careful. A tribal customer might not be as same as any other customer because the tribal culture that he has been raised up in, born in, has a lot to do with the kind of the worldview and with the kind of classification that the tribal in their own life take important, what matters, what are the values, what are the choices, what are the decisions, what Most of these tribal communities are basically simple society people. They sustain on subsistence economy. And if you talk to them in the language of loans, taxes, repayments, perhaps they might not understand it. They might just understand how would they get a source for their livelihood. It would be as meager as obtaining maybe a 2 times meal. I have worked as in an SME branch. I have worked with these women from cooperatives Yes, I apologize for the city hamper. I that these people who really unaware of how they can come to the mainstream of this financial inclusion. Okay, now here I find the system at crossroads. Why? Because if you see the data, you see the figure. The Indian banking system is very. I would say that it is weak. No, it is not. It is very robust branches which are spread across the remotest corners of the country. I have worked in one such bank. But even the banking system fails at some point. And it's high time now that we, as employees of the banking sector, we as the banking sector, we start talking more about it. Why? Because these are very simple areas to be explored. Okay. And we can only do this when we have a humanistic. The bank branches where I worked, it had several lead bank branches within it. Now, what are lead bank branches? These lead bank branches are basically branches the needs of the most privileged communities, which are spread across. And some of you might have heard of the doorstep banking process, which is very much functional in an urban area. But when you go to the rural tribal area, this doorstep banking becomes cumbersome because of the geography because of the geographies tribal people reside in. The great deal of connectivity issue. Now you can imagine I'm sitting in an urban suffering from this technology internet connectivity failure. So just imagine a small branch in the western ghats of Karnataka, or maybe a small branch somewhere in the backwaters of Alipi. So the technology is not that supportive in terms of giving the system connectivity to the people. So what the bank uh, began with sometime in 2012 and 13 is a system where a business correspondent would go to these particular houses and meet the tribal people and the rural people one to face. And this was an extreme good step where a perspective could be brought in. Because you see, the women of the tribal areas, even the men, they are very Yes, am I audible again? Sorry for that. connectivity issue. I'll wrap it up in a minute so that I don't bother you much. So I need to continue it. And I humbly submit for this financial inclusion, we need to realistic figures and data at least for some time. Okay, because financial inclusion is a it is a way of employment, and it can only come when the people involved in the mainstream of economy. And the banking industry has its own products and services, which I'm sure all of you know about savings bank, the current account, fixed deposits, and it has its services like cash acceptance, cash withdrawal, lending, etc. And these products and services have to be made accessible to the people, particularly the tribals. And this term accessibility has very significant connotation. We cannot take it for granted that just opening a bank account will achieve that. No, it's not just that. Like Sucheta ma'am, the tribal communities, they have diverse life and livelihood. They could be hunters and gatherers, they could be hill cultivators, they could be pastoralists, nomad, tribal groups, the PVTGs. And some of my students who have worked PVT community, you would not believe the kind of raw data they come up with pertaining to the economy that is still being practiced in India by the PVT will be alarmed in a sense. Very recently, one of my students, uh, she went to small PVTG community located in the Dadar Nagar Haveli, and she came back to me with utter, uh, I would not use the word disappointment because ultimately I was talking about people of our country. She was telling me that, ma'am, the area where I went uh, in Dadar and Nagar Haveli, the day begins around as early as 6 a.m. Sets in around 4 in the evening. Now just imagine 4 p.m. The the entire PVTG community, which is just which has just one work, and that is drinking alcohol. Their alcoholics to a great extent, and by 4 p.m. the day ends, and there is no the nearest bank is in Silvassa, and they have never ever been to the bank. There is just one middleman who does a bridging between them and the bank, and that middleman is a person who is very much up in the caste, very dominating, and an illiterate person. So it's more of, if you go into the ground reality, the crisis have many anthropologists to account for it. The accounts that we present mostly gets locked up in reports and never come up in the form of policy implications. So I would just like to highlight a few more pointers and then I would end with the presentation. I want to highlight that the tribe have a very unique concept of profit and leisure, both. And in fact, they are into ceremonial funds. They are into collection of ceremonial funds. And the bankers don't have much idea of it. So the bankers only feel that the tribal people need to have an account, they need to have a passbook, they need to have certain figures. So who takes an account how these funds have to be utilized in various occasions? Because the tribal people land up exhausting all the money ceremonial funds without having the vision. I would think what we have, we can do recurring deposits for
Natasha, you please very quickly you just,
Yeah,
uh,
I'm so
tell me
sorry.
about
This will be
the
last when I'm
recommendations because
suggesting
very
that
frequently you are getting disconnected.
yes, yes, sir, and I'm so apologetic about it. Sir, my recommendations would be number one, that when a recruitment has to be done of probationary officers, assistant managers in all the public banks, there is a section where we fill in our expertise when we are applying for it. I think there should be a good scrutiny at that level. And more opportunities should be provided to anthropologists. Now, yourself must have seen that anthropologists are jobless in our country, most of them. And I don't have any represent that community. So, if more anthropologists really have the skill to interpret cultures of the tribal communities can be brought in, that will be very good. Then, second, when we are talking about uh, the welfare of our country, nowadays there is a lot of impetus given on public and private partnership. What I have observed is that the private banks are mostly oriented towards profit. Somehow, if the private banks can be roped in to come together, join hands with the public banks, and somehow work for the tribal communities in areas of financial inclusion, I think that will be a brilliant step. Because the times are different now. Our government is different, and our government is more towards privatization. But definitely, this involves some human rights activists' involvement in it because this is a very dicey zone. I mean, private banks coming in and taking away the rights of the vulnerable communities. So, some kind of bridging there I can see. Thirdly, if we look at grievance addressers have to be and more tuned in the local dialect, in the local language. And last but not the least, what I feel is that at the school levels and at the college levels, these tribal children must be educated about the day to day operations of the banks in their areas, in the local area, nearby area. Because if they are aware, they can apply for education loans. Many a times it has happened that from somewhere they will hear that banks are providing them education loans, scholarships, and subsidies because the government provides a benefit scheme where which can be only accessible if the Aadhaar cards of the individuals are linked to the bank accounts. So early awareness is something that I would vouch for uh, in this domain. So with this, I think I have been able to communicate something, if not everything, because of the connectivity failure which is here. The network is not accessible to me. I'm logging in off, and it is disrupting my focus to speak. But anyways, this session
Okay,
is over for me, and
okay, okay.
so thanks to
Thank you
Narayan.
very much. You have been, though you have a very bad connection, this, but you have been able to communicate some of the real problems of the tribals which they face there, and I'm sure that some of your recommendations uh, deserve some importance in drafting policy for the uh, financial inclusion in tribal India. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hope in future also you will join us in this kind of webinar. So thank you. Made an excellent presentation. Now I will request Shri S.S. Bhattji to make his observations and presentations and recommendations because what we have seen in
Thank you,
last
sir.
two experts presentation that they have talked about the uh, gap between the banking system which is considered as largely responsible for financial inclusion of the tribals, that there is a long big gap between the tribals and such banking system. And as you know that you and some other persons as an institution, banking institutions providing uh, fund to the tribals and also in rural India, you are working hard to provide them some financial input or to have their role. You are playing important role of financial institutions for the development of the tribals and the rural population. So, and I think that we are very recently we are also working on this Birho tribe of Gaya districts, and their system like yours is more popular than the banking system or the other government system. It is all because they just come to help, and the tribals are they need not fill up so many forms and formalities from which uh, with which they are not aware of, and they do not want to do all those things because they are not traditionally they are not oriented like that. So you have a lot of field experience and you are doing the real service. So with this, I expect that you will say something about the presentation which has been made and about your own recommendations. So please tell us something.
Yeah. Good evening, Professor Narayan. Society for Empowerment, I think, is doing a very novel job in calling the experts. I'm audible, na?
Yes, you are on.
Yes, sir, you
Yeah,
are audible.
yeah. In calling the experts and discussing on various aspects like financial inclusion among women, financial inclusion among tribal community, and all the other vulnerable segments of the society. It's a been a learning. It has been a learning experience for me for listening to Professor Sain and Professor Mitashri. I think the world is small because the world places what they have referred. In fact, when Professor Sen referred Jharkhand, I used to work in Jharkhand for 2 years as head of the state of Canara Bank in Jharkhand, and I have traveled across Jharkhand so that I have some idea of that area as to how the banking system is working there. That's one part. The second thing is on Mitashri, when she was telling she was working in a bank in Sagar, I belong to that place because it's about my native place is about 20 kilometers from Sagar, and she must be knowing about a tribal community nearby, that is Siddhi community in the North Canara district, which is adjacent to Shimoga district. In that way, the world is small, and we travel
Yes.
in such areas where the things are happening. But I do not have that pessimistic view of there have been developments. Definitely there are problems, but there has been substantial progress in reaching in even in these two geographies also. See, either in Jharkhand or in, say, in Sagar district or in many of the places where the tribal population live. Financial inclusion, for say, when we specifically refer to tribals, as both the professors have told, financial inclusion is one where you provide access to financial products and services. One is access, providing access, whether people are having access to these financial products and services. Second one is at what cost? Because if financial services and products are available at an exorbitant cost, as we have seen in the earlier system that money lenders used to give, say, 100 rupees in the morning and collect 180 rupees or 150 rupees in the evening. That sort of whether what is the cost of financial products and services available to them, and to which segment. When we talk of financial inclusion, I think it is the vulnerable segments of the society, weaker sections of the society, the women, the tribal, the scheduled caste, and things. These people, what is the extent of this financial inclusion there? In that way, one is providing access, at what cost, and where it is made available, whether financial inclusion or these services and products are available at a distance, like Mitashri was mentioning, they have to travel 20 kilometers or 25 kilometers to approach a bank branch. Whether that is available, made available to them at their place which they prefer or near to their. And in the banking scenario, you have seen that the financial inclusion, when the RBI has brought out the financial inclusion index, and also CRISIL also had some time back brought out the financial inclusion index, there we see the financial inclusion index is very high, where the bank branches are very close to the habitat of the people. See, in places where the bank branches are close within the, say, 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers, the things have been very good there. If it is farther, then they find it difficult to approach the banks and make it. Having said that, see, what is that financial inclusion can bring, especially among the tribals? One is, we know that financial inclusion is required unless we have economic empowerment. We do not say that any person is empowered. Yeah, social empowerment is required, political empowerment is required, cultural empowerment is required. All these socio-economic, cultural, and political empowerment is required. But basically, unless you have the economic empowerment, you will not have the decision making power. In that way, economic empowerment becomes the first and foremost priority for the people to come to the mainstream of the economy and also have a decision making power. I think that is one very important. In that way, financial inclusion among tribals is very, very important. When we say that, I would like to say, first bring the barriers, because barriers of financial inclusion for tribals have been touched by both the professors. I would like to put these barriers into four brackets. One is at the individual level, at the tribal individual level itself, what are the barriers, and at the institutional level and ecosystem level, and at the advocacy level, where Professor Narayanan is working on the advocacy level. No? Where what are the barriers we see in these type of activities when we say very focused work on the tribals? When we see at the individual level, see, there is low awareness, as Professor Mitashri was mentioning, and Professor Narayan was also mentioning, that there is low awareness about the, one is the financial information itself. People are, the tribal people, either the nomadic one or the unsettled tribals, they do not have much information or much knowledge about the, one is financial services and the financial products, and why it is important for them. That awareness is very much lacking. Then low levels of financial literacy. See, awareness is one thing, and literacy, whether they are getting proper financial literacy programs, or somebody is there to help them to understand what is this financial inclusion, or what is this financial literacy, what I should do with my money, whether I should save it in a bank, whether I should lend it to somebody else, or whether I will get interest. If so, what is that interest I'm getting if I keep in a bank, and how my money can grow, and how it will help in setting either my livelihood activity or develop an enterprise, or how we can go about that. That is the thing. Then the other barrier when we see at the individual level is the lack of ideas, as even Professor Mitashri was also mentioning. They do not have, because these are, maybe at a certain time they are migratory, or they may be having, but they do not have enough documents or enough papers to provide creating an identity for those people. Unless you have an identity, though there has been lot of work has been done to open the simple basic saving bank accounts, but ID is one area where there is a lot of hindrances there for these people to open the accounts in the banks. Then on the collaterals, see, these people lack collaterals. Maybe the tribals do not own certain properties, or even they do not have that say power, have the power to enter into a bank branch, ask the branch manager, discuss with him what are their issues, and open the accounts. Okay. Then when we consider the present day period, that is lack of technology comfort, whether they are comfort with the technology, maybe there has been a lot of improvement, but if you go to the remote areas, whether these people are comfortable with the technology banks are adopting, or whether they are having that comfort on the technology side, I think these are some of the areas which come across as the barriers at the client level. And also other thing is very important thing is restrictive social and cultural norms, because as even Professor Mitashri was telling that they are not allowed to go out, women are not allowed to go out of the hutments, and they will do certain activity within the forest region or within the region itself. In that way, whether these restrictive social and cultural norms are affecting their financial inclusion initiatives. Then when we see come across the institutional level, see barriers, there are institutions, there is a limited understanding of the requirements of the tribal people by the institutions working. Maybe there may be many institutions who are understanding, but majority of them uh, do not understand the requirements of these tribal people, or they may have a larger mass wherein the tribal mass may be a small percentage point. Therefore the focus is not going on the tribal mass to understand the field requirement, their own requirement. That is the thing. Then whatever, suppose even if they are providing certain products and services, the financial institutions are providing certain products and services, but as they understand, they may give the products and services, but it may not match the requirement of the tribal people. So that even if you give a say loan of 10,000 rupees for a particular person for the growing of crops or collecting leaves from the forest or collecting some sort of medicinal herbs from the plant, if it is not given at the time when it is required or in a terms which she needs, and if you give it at a later time, that will not serve the purpose. Though she may take that money, but it will not come to the use of that particular activity which she is desiring to do. In that way, that mismatch between the offerings and requirements also comes. Then I think lack of proper data on the tribals, as Professor Narayanan was mentioning about the settled tribals and nomadic tribals and other things. I was searching even the Ministry of Tribal website also. I was not able to get a concrete information on the see financial inclusion among the tribals, though there are certain information available, but that data gap is definitely there. The disaggregated data about the nomadic tribes or the unsettled tribes, this is also at the institutional level, they do not have that information. Then within the tribals itself, whether women are having bank accounts, whether women are going out and doing some economic activity, whether they are taking up some enterprises and other things, that sort of information also is very much lacking. And on the policy focus, we see that there are institutions working for the tribals, but whether they have that proper policy focus of see improving the economic level of these tribals or social status of these tribals, or providing them some other support services which will make them stronger than they were earlier, which will take them to make a better agriculture, better enterprise, and all these things. And whatever the activity they are doing, whether they can do it in a better way, in a more economic way, earn more out of that. And the other thing is at the institutional level is there are very few scalable such institutions working. Professor Narayanan's institute may, is working on that, see even tribal improvement and other things. He was telling about the Gaya example. But how many institutes we have like that in India? Even maybe if I understand correctly, the percentage of tribal population is about 10%, maybe about 10 to 12 crores is the population of tribals. But how many institutions are working for the cause of tribals? there is a need for more and more institutions exclusively working for the tribals welfare, tribals economic upliftment, tribal social upliftment. And on the ecosystem, when they are operating, see, tribals, they are in an ecosystem of a society wherein, sir, you can stop me wherever you want me to, and you can tell me the time, how much time I have, so that I can adjust my talk accordingly.
Okay, you
Another
have
10
another
minutes?
10. We have
10
another
minutes.
10 minutes.
Okay, okay, yeah. In that way, I can see from the ecosystem side also how ecosystem, whether the ecosystem, available ecosystem supports the development of tribals' financial inclusion or tribals' economic development. As Professor Mitachri was mentioning, no, enough banking outlets are not there near the system. Whether there is a definite work on those, which are the areas where these banking network is deficient. Whether somebody like Society for Empowerment or my own institute, Friends of Women's World Banking, whether we have identified those areas and tried with the government or the Ministry of Tribal Affairs or Ministry of Economic Policy and Reforms, whether we have tried them, no, these are the areas. So many tribals are there, 5,000 population of tribals are there, but they do not have access to the banking system. Whether we have tried to pinpoint that and making that available at those places, that is other area. Then whether we have helped them to, whether the ecosystem has helped them to create uniform ID for these people if they do not have proper documents. Whether somebody else, there is a provision in the banking system that some known person can introduce a person and they can, or she can open an account in the bank. Whether people outside the system, the tribal system, are trying to help those tribal people to take them to bank, open their accounts, and making that happen about their involvement in the banking system. That is also then lack of infrastructure and connectivity, as Mitachri was mentioning. But I think there has been substantial improvement in the connectivity and the broadband network, and the government of India's scheme of say digitizing the all the panchayats, maybe about already 2 lakh 50 panchayats they have selected for providing the broadband network. Mostly about 1 lakh 50,000 panchayats have been, even when she was mentioning about Sagar and my place, a remote rural place, we have got the broadband network now in the remote place also. In those Siddhi area where these tribals are there, a institution has been developed and they have been able to access the internet, and they've been, and that community is coming now forward. They are in sports, they are in education. I was having a discussion with one of the girls from Siddhi community from my locality other day, where she has passed out from Ajim Premji University. Uh, they have got a special scholarship for the tribal girls who have completed their education, BA, and she did MBA from Ajit Premji University. I think these type of opportunities coming to the tribal people, and they come and take that, explore that opportunity, and try to complete and try to compete with other. I think that will give the support for these things, and these type of infrastructure have to be there. Then the ecosystem players itself, I think there are many players in the ecosystem, but whether these players work complementarily. If I am working, if Professor Narayanan is working, if Professor Mitashri is working, running as a NGO and other things, whether all the three NGOs, we may be working in silos, but I may be working on women empowerment, you may be working on financial empowerment, somebody must be working on their social awareness. Whether all three of us can get together and go to that area and see that holistic development support is given to these tribal people, whether that sort of complementarity has been is there, that is not happening as of even now. The collaborative efforts is still lacking. That is the thing where we need to work. Then on the advocacy level, yes, I think Professor Narayan sir, I think you are doing a good job in see bringing a lot of people, because anthropologists speaking about the banking system and their understanding, they're conducting the studies and other things, giving various ideas on those things. Definitely, it's a welcome move, and many suggestions could be given to the government while making the policy. Maybe it is not that the policies or the ideas suggestions what we give today will be implemented next year or this year itself, but over a period of time definitely this will become helpful in developing a proper policy framework for the tribal community when such talks or advocacy levels are done. And we feel that less voice is heard on these things. Maybe Professor Narayanan is making a voice, but how many Narayanans are there making this voice for the cause of tribals? Whether that is happening. Professor Mitashri, whether on how many platforms we talk on these tribals, whether we say that no, this is one area which has to be taken up by the, when we get the platform, whether we make that case that yes, these are the areas, either in say Bihar or in Jharkhand or in Odisha or in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka or in Gujarat, in these tribal belts, whether we are crying for schemes, crying for benefits for these people. Then structured organizations, whether we have from the government side, maybe Department of Tribal Welfare is there, and maybe minority and backward community organizations are there, whether these structured organizations are working for the benefit, whether the public at large have a scrutiny on these organizations and their benefits reaching the right people and the right time. That sort of advocacy is very much required if we have to see a considerable improvement in reaching the tribal community for the financial inclusion. And one more thing is on the tribal community, very few studies and research. Maybe there are localized researches, but if you have to have a all India level research or study about the tribal, why these tribal people are not being able to included in the mainstream financial system, whether such studies are there. No, I am not able to come across such major studies which covers all India figures and latest. Maybe some studies available for 14, 15, but lot of things change in the current environment. The things are changing so fast that we need to have the up to date and the reliable data for making any decision or taking any policy decisions. In that way, that sort of research is also, I think, anthropologists can have that things, maybe a localized research which can be extrapolated to different areas, having some random samples from different areas, so that some policy level decision could be taken. In that way, I think these are the some of the barriers and some of the improvement. And having said that, what are the things that needs to be done for bringing financial inclusion among the tribals? One is definitely, I say that there should be disaggregated data available on these tribals. See, now we say that there are 44 crores of Jandan accounts opened post the initiative of the government of India, and there is about 1.59 lakh crores balance and average balance of 3,000 rupees. We know that yes, that the 55% of the accounts belong to the women, but whether we know how many accounts are opened by tribal women, how many accounts are opened by tribals, that sort of disaggregated information is not available. Maybe government is collecting that data, maybe banks have that reporting system, but it is not available in the public domain. Why not we try to get that information and try to see where the deficiency is there? Like RBI is bringing out the index now, financial inclusion index. They would like to study about 97 parameters are there. If Narayanan could speak to Reserve Bank of India to include some of the tribal traits for including in the financial inclusion index, so that it gives a chapter on how the tribals are financially included, how many accounts they have, how many supports they have got from the banking system. That is one thing. And geographical wise also, there may be, see, the extent of inclusion in Odisha may be much different than the extent of inclusion that has happened in Jharkhand. In that way, even geography wise also is very important. Then the, in a holistic way, whether we are addressing this issue in a holistic way, financial inclusion as a holistic way, whether we are trying to address, because financial inclusion is not mere opening of bank accounts. One is whether they are having bank accounts, whether they are provided with the insurance facilities like Prime Minister Jeevan Bima Yojana or Suraksha Bima Yojana, which are available at a very, very, very affordable price. They may not be knowing that. The people may not be knowing about these availability. 12 rupees insurance scheme available to them, and 330 rupees life insurance scheme available to them. The debit card which has got accident insurance, that may not be there. Whether we are trying to see that when we talk to the tribals, whether we say that if you open a bank account, you can take a PMSBI policy, PMJGBI policy, or a debit card, and there is a scheme called Atal Pension Yojana where you can have this Atal Pension Yojana. Then whether these direct benefit transfers are going through their accounts, if we are able to make that their accounts are linked with Aadhaar numbers, so that whatever the benefits they are eligible, whatever the government scheme benefits come, they are routed through their accounts, so that they are able to transact. Once they are accustomed to transact the banking account, they would come to know more about what is the bank, how the bank works, what are the facilities available. In that way, I think we should make these things happen linearly, to see that these people are graduated from stage to stage. Directly, if you say that I will give you 10 lakh loan, they will be worried. If you start with, say, 20,000, 30,000 loan, like SHG movement or the microfinance movement, they know what is happening, how to take a loan, how to repay the loan, and other things. That sort of education is there. Then the financial literacy, because financial literacy is one thing. RBI is also having a very structured financial literacy program for across all the blocks. Whether it is reaching those blocks, I think it is the responsibility of we organizations to see that these blocks are identified where the higher number of tribals are there, whether they are getting these financial literacy programs for the community, whether they are made aware of these, what are the benefits available from the government, benefit available from the Reserve Bank of India, and benefit available from the banks. And simultaneously, whether we are able to give them the digital literacy also, because now that mobile phones are order of the day, and lot of financial transactions are happening on the mobile phones, and your other transaction, and lot of benefits, because even for taking vaccines you need to have a mobile number, and you can have the certificates on the mobile. In that way, that digital literacy, whether these women, tribal women or tribal community, is able to operate mobile, know what are the facilities they can take from mobile, these type of awareness whether we are giving. Then the third thing, what Mitashri was telling, was on the human resources. They should, I think, see, local human resources would definitely bring confidence among these tribals to come more easily for taking any of these schemes benefits or eligible benefits. The local people, local tribal people themselves may be employed either by the non-governmental agencies or even by the bank, because there has been substantial effort by the banking system to recruit the scheduled tribes, and they are doing that. In that way, even the other non-governmental organizations or microfinance institutions or the quasi-financial institutions try to recruit the local people and try to enable the system making that work. And there should be overall enabling environment for these things to happen. All these agencies should work together to make this happen. In that way, I think the government has taken very many steps right from 2006. Lot of schemes have been, and Jam Trinity, that is, one is Jandan Yojana, Aadhaar, and the mobile is the game changer for this one. And subsequently, the UPI payment through the mobile is also now, wherever you see UPI payment or code payment has been, even a tribal person doing a cart, sending a tender coconut or even vegetable on the vendor, they will have that QR code. In that way, whether we are able to see popularize that and see that these people are able to get that benefit. And I would like to address some of the issues raised by, I think, Professor Sain on the about the financial inclusion in Jharkhand, and also about the say Stand Up Yojana and the Prime Minister Mudra Yojana. As per the some of the statistics, the Prime Minister Mudra Yojana, about 5% of the benefits have gone to tribal people, that is under the Mudra Yojana. And the stand-up loans, about 5,000 loans have been taken by the tribal people, amounting to about 935 crores, which forms about 4% of the total credit given under. I think though these are small numbers, yes, people have been coming, but what is to be seen is whether these people are really eligible people, whether the right people have got, or the creamy layer of the tribal segment has got this benefit. That we need to ensure that the right people are getting this benefit, because there are a lot many benefits available from the government. Whether these things are happening in that way, I think we need to work on those things, whether they are able to get that benefit. Then the on the efforts of banks, because I was in Jharkhand, I used to, even places like Chota Nagara, Chakradarpur, Noa Mundi and other things where tribal population is there, we have opened one branch, Canara Bank. She was mentioning good words about Canara Bank. I used to work in Canara Bank for almost 37 years. I think one more addition I can make is we have opened a self-employment training institute, Canara Bank. When I was there in 2010, we opened in one of the remote districts in Silli, one rural employment self-employment training institute for training the unemployed youth of that district, even the Ranchi, Silli, and these areas, tribal people. And I am very happy to say that during that time, the Deputy Chief Minister, I think Mr. Mahato, was there. After seeing the training, one or two trainings, he sent the entire block women to Nadia, to some other places where these trainings were working, training institutes were already established, and how the trained women or trained people have been benefited out of these programs. I think true bogie full of women were sent to different areas to see the experience. Post that, we have been seeing very good traction for these type of training institutes, and lot of tribal people coming there, getting the training and starting their own enterprises. I think these are some of the initiatives which have to be taken by the mainstream banks for encouraging the tribal people to come to say main economic empowerment. Then on the other side of what Mitashri was telling about the BC and BF, I think a lot of work has been done on the business facilitator and business correspondent movement. I think more than 2.5 lakh three mitras or mitris are there in the rural areas, providing doorstep banking facility for the villages. Even in most of the tribal areas are also, these people are going and try to, wherever network is not available, they will come to, there is offline mode also for transacting. Things are happening, but it has to be accelerated. That's what I would like to tell. And it is not that things are not happening at the field. Definitely things are happening, and there has been a traction in addressing this issue. Yes, but there are more efforts required to reach larger number of people. More see that large number of tribal people are getting benefit out of these programs. Definitely, I think the SHG movement, which has touched now almost 10 million groups, and also which is for the women, both in tribal and non-tribal areas. Then the microfinance movement, which has touched about 60 million unique women borrowers. There also maybe about 5 to 10% women are from the tribal segment. These are some of the positive developments which have been happening. And even on the banking side also, definitely there has been effort. Now that there is a co-lending arrangement between the banks and the NBFCs and the financial institutions, the microfinance institutions who are working at the grassroots level, they can have a co-lending arrangement with the mainstream bank, so that the identification of the people is done by the microfinance institutions or the NGOs working there, and mainstream banks advantage is taken by these people. I think we need to promote. There are lot many schemes, but whether the promotional activities are done, whether the local people are taking interest in promoting these activities, the government schemes, whether the local government officials are taking, the rural banks. I think the rural banks of the branches of the banks are doing great work. They in spreading the message and ensuring that. And banks also have got different see provision of recruiting people from the agriculture. The agriculture graduate they recruit, marketing people they recruit, so that education is brought. And even for education, financial literacy also, banks have set up financial literacy centers in each blocks now, in each of the blocks. And government, Reserve Bank of India is also coming out with this large from the depositors education fund, large financial literacy programs are coming. I think this should help. And we organizations like Society for Empowerment, FWWB, and many other organizations should try to divert these programs to these communities where these people are working, so that the benefits go to them. I think with that I will stop. Thank you, Professor Narayanan and Professor Mitashri and Sain, for giving so many inputs on this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bhatt Saab. I am really very happy to listen you after a long time. We
Yeah.
were trying to get you earlier also, but somehow or other today we had an occasion to hear you. And today we had a good panel of experts also, Mitashri and Professor Shane. They have also made good presentation. So to address some of the issues which you have raised is that Society for Empowerment is working in the same direction which you have mentioned. We have prepared roadmap for the development of the tribes of Chhattisgarh. We are there. We have given the thing. Now we are also working in the same direction for the state of Jharkhand. And recently we have released a report on the health status of one block of Bihar districts of Bihar. So we are trying as a as an unit, we are trying to uh, make our presence felt in the government. And the in India we have 12.8% of the population, of tribal population. But and now what I am working on them since 1966. So what I have seen in 1966 and what I am seeing in 2022, much development has taken place among the tribes in tribal India. There is one book that is about the primitive and dwindling tribes of India. If you go through that, you will find the details about, at one place, you will find detail about the primitive, nomadic, and dwindling tribes of India in one place. One of my recent report on the primitive and vulnerable tribes, that was of 2018, that has been given to Government of India. So that report is also there. And there is one of my book is on Indian anthropology. There I have discussed about the tribes of India, state-wise and occupation-wise, economic classification-wise. So all those things are there. One of the my latest book is Dynamics of Development in Tribal India. That has become that is a very popular book among the government system because I have remained throughout a research professor. But I also go to university abroad, sometime in India also, and I had an opportunity because the television which you see today or the computer, these things, and those days in 1970s, I was with ISRO, a scientist, in which the satellite instructional television experiment were experimented in the country, and there was no television. We first introduced to as an agriculture for the agriculture program of limited telecast 10 kilometer in Usha Agriculture University. And since then, today now we have 300 some odd channels. So what we did in 70s, what we gave to country in 70s for general for the country, for the benefit of the country, is the field of science and development. So that's what that I'm also doing uh, these days for the tribals and the rural India. And I must say that your program and that of the Jayashree program are very, very useful and very popular among the women's sector. But the problem is that, as Mitasri has said, she is not here perhaps, she has said that bank has its own language. So the language of the bank must be pro people and pro tribal. Only then they can understand. There is an institution called TriFed, which is there to provide actual price of the goods and the product which they are doing, and that is purchased by the government. There is a system of if the tribal art and tribal craft or tribal dress
Yeah.
uh, which they prepare, they are bought by the uh, khadi centers. In each district there is a khadi center. Go just sell your product and you will get money in a week time. That money will come to. But unfortunately, we as an anthropologist or the whole system of working for the economic development of the tribals are not concentrating on these small issues which is a great issue for the poor tribals because
Correct.
they are not literate, they are not educated, they do not know. You see, even after so many years, one girl from the Birhor passed matric only last year. So you
Yeah.
see what kind of development we have when the Birhor, only one has passed, whereas the Birhors are found in several states. But that is there. In Gaya, we are working among the Birhors and we are going for their real development, not for what we say or what the governments say. We suggest government, we interact with the government, and I have a satisfaction right from the very beginning. Whatsoever recommendations I have given to government, that has been adopted in toto, whether it is for drinking water, whether it is for education, or whether it is for the holistic development. What you said, emphasized about the holistic approach for the development of the tribes. You are very correct, very right. This is the approach of the World Bank also, that we do not want to develop only in terms of education or only in terms of women development. There must be some integrated program with
Yeah.
that they can, because the self-help group which you are running, that is only for the economic development. You have added with insurance as a welfare program for the beneficiaries. But where are the other programs? Yeah, for education, for their health, for their other day-to-day need, that is absent. So if person like you, if you add all these programs in your self-help group programs, that will be a holistic development of a
That we are
particular
trying to
group.
make now.
That you are
Even the
trying to
health
make that.
also. Yeah. Health program also you are including now.
Yes,
Health and
because
education.
the
Yeah.
government has also taken it up as from holistic perspective, not from this perspective. Because
Yeah.
I have mentioned in one of my book, that is the dynamics of development in tribal India. There I mentioned that the development input which we are giving to the tribals are more creating exploitative development, differential development, and deprivatory development rather than the holistic development. So our approach should be the holistic development, and government has agreed to it. And from that perspective, so many plans and policies have been drafted, and again, it is under the implementation stage. So all these things are there, but we need a person like you and our today's expert, that we must sit together and take up the issue wise. We should come up that these are the policy, these should be the policy, and
Yeah.
then I will pursue it with the system that, and that will be followed.
Yeah.
Whatsoever I have advocated for any policy or any program, I am happy to say that has been accepted by the government. Not because I am a very great person or something like that, but because those are the real problems. Those are the real issues. The real
Yeah. Yeah.
issues of the people. If you address the real issues of the people, then God will help you. Because all those people who were hungry are getting food. then you will see the real development has come and you get some satisfaction that yes, I have done something which you can show to the people. If you come with me, I can take you to some tribes where I have provided safe drinking water to them with the help of the bamboos, without any expenditure. Uh, it was all because of we identified the local indigenous raw material, and accordingly we trained the local people, the tribal people. They adopted it, and they are getting safe drinking water. So is the case with the economy, the agriculture. We trained them in that, and they are doing that. They don't need any help from the self-help group, because from that they are able to fulfill their own need. So that is there. So we need to do all those. There should be a consortium. You are very right to say that Vitasri is a very dynamic young anthropologist. If her voice is placed and heard by the government, then tremendous development can take place among the nomadic tribes or the primitive tribes or the tribes as general. You have used very correct term, creamy layer of the tribals. That the creamy layer of the tribals, they are representing the whole tribes of the country, 12.8% of the population. But that is not reality. Those such tribals who became IAS or became minister or who became IPS, they do not consider themselves as a tribe. Even if they have earlier married, now after becoming IAS or IPS, they got some other kind of man with to lead their life, and then they become a different kind of. So they exploit tribals more than the others. So this is something which needs to be understood, explained, and do. Because at one point of time, World Bank, I as a consultant of the World Bank, have recommended so many things, and you see, from that it has become mandatory to hire the services of anthropologists for any World Bank activities for which it has been funded by the World Bank. So that role, we have to make a space in the system. Unless you have some say in the government, you cannot get
Yeah.
effective in improving the situation of any tribe. But fortunately, I have some say in the government. I have
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
position in the government. So they have to listen it, because it's not that I am telling it for my own benefit. I am telling it for the benefit of the tribals. So that kind of situation, that kind of group we have to create. So, and we are doing Society for Empowerment is doing it regularly. Must have watched it, that we at least
Yeah.
twice we are doing it, and we are working it with the Gandhian philosophy and Gandhian vision, so that in Gandhian vision and Gandhian philosophy, each individual must get satisfaction of their life through their system providing input for their development. That is that we have to advocate. So advocacy is very essential, and activities are also very essential. So with that, and I'm sure in future also we will get some sort of support from you, and you can. Our panelists are there. Some more anthropologists are there. Some more activists are there. Any number of activists, any number of anthropologists you need, I am ready to give you their mobile number, their address, and you can call them, because you have a long, great link with the World Bank. So I also have, but I have so many things to do for the government. So
Correct. Correct. Correct.
sometimes it become limited. But you are as an NGO, you are free to do all those things. So you can do it, and we can take up a district, we can take up a block, and can show the difference. If you come with me, there is a tribe called Kana Bhagat, whom I
Hmm.
call as the living Gandhians. They are the only group of the people who are following Gandhiji in toto in their lifestyle. So
Yeah.
that group needs to be focused. And similarly, Chhattisgarh, there are also group of tribes who are leading the life of Gandhi in Maharashtra also. But how many people know them? That is the question, because there is a gap. gap between our research, our finding, our action research, and let there be a platform like a Society for Empowerment where we can interact, where we also call the tribals. You might have seen one of the earlier program on this women. We have brought some tribal women also, so, and some bureaucrats are also there. So we are trying to play the role of a platform from through which we can link the people and we can get some sort of development input as designed by us. So I will be happy to have you in another uh, webinar and hope that you will come and
Sure, sure, sir.
soon, and will try to change the life of some of the social
Yeah,
groups. Sometimes the tribals do not want that they should be called as tribals. When I was in National Human Rights Commission, some of the tribals of Chhattisgarh and this Madhya Pradesh and Northeast, they own caste. Why you call us? We are we some of them say that we call it as a that you are accusing us.
yeah, yeah,
This is a negative denomination for us. You must call us by our name, or you must call us whatsoever development programs you are doing. You must do that, and you can see it with the students of JNU, the tribal students of Northeast or some Nagaland or from other places. They are there. Once we have had a webinar with the Nagaland University, and there the students said that we are very happy that with the Gandhian approach you at least understand our problem. You can interact, which our vice chancellor is not, unable to understand. So that kind of rapport we create with the people. Unless we have that rapport, we cannot make any development input for them. So thank you very much to Mitasri, Shane, Professor Shane, and to Sri Bhatt Sahab, and hope Sri Bhatt Sahab will extend his support to our activities, and for which you have once you have promised to help the society through not help for individual but for the groups in which we are working
yeah, yeah,
for their development in the field of education, in the field of agriculture. We have taken up the holistic approach. As you know, for anthropologists are known for a holistic approach we have done, and we have team of young anthropologists who have done very great work among the tribes and the rural India. So let us have some, you decide some date, we will meet again, and
yeah,
we
yeah.
will, thank you.
Surely,
Thank you very
surely,
much.
sir. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. I think it has been a great learning experience for me by listening to you and the other two professors on the from the anthropology side of the tribal community and what is that to be understood by other people. I think it's been a great learning for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Namaste.
Namaste, sir. Take care.
Namaste. Okay.